It's easy for people like me who've been trained in population health to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and expect everybody else to know what we're talking about. But that's not always the case. Not everybody's familiar with these, or they're too abstract, they're too high level, they're not really meaningful. So the SDGs come from global health thinking, and when we say global health, people often hear international health. And just to grossly oversimplify, international health is much more about saying, there's a problem that those people have, we're going to help fix it. It tends to emphasize them versus us, and a one-way relationship where we're the ones doing something to help other people. There's nothing actually wrong with that, but global health thinking is quite different. Global health is about saying the things that drive health and ill health are the same everywhere, no matter where you are, and we have a common interest in addressing these. Global health is about saying, what's going on, what can we learn from each other, how can we find our way towards making things better, and particularly, how do we address unfairness? Why do some people have much poorer health experiences than others, some countries, some populations? How do we mitigate that? How do we reduce that gap? How do we address health inequities? So every population, every community will have its own particular pattern of ill health, but what drives that's going to be the same. How we address the problem, how we make a difference is where different places will differ. And we have as much to learn, we being those of us in high-income countries, have a lot to learn from people who live and from countries that are less high income, who face resource issues. Sometimes their solutions to problems can be applied here as well. So there's this idea of a partnership and a balance, and not those of us in high-income countries fixing the problems that you over there in low-income countries have to deal with. That's the idea of a global health way of thinking. So again, that's still rather abstract and rather high level. So let's come down to where we are now. Let's think about this province, Newfoundland and Labrador. It's got its share of health problems like everywhere else. And the things that drive the health problems here are the things that drive health problems everywhere. Let's take one of the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. Number 2 is zero hunger. I think we've all seen plenty in the media about people queuing up at food banks, about food insecurity, about people going hungry. Zero hunger is an SDG, just as it's an SDG for every other country in the world. The fixes, the ways of addressing that here have to work here. But it is as much an SDG for us as it would be for anywhere else. If we look at the Health Accord, which has been playing its way through over the last few years, we have seen how it has led to making changes in how we run healthcare. But within the Health Accord itself was an attention to social determinants of health. Effectively embedded in that document was a recognition of the SDGs, even if they weren't called that by name. And some of the actions that have started to play out address the SDGs. We talk about a basic minimum income. That's about reducing poverty. There's sections in there about food insecurity, about early childhood education. These all talk to SDGs. Now, I'm standing in a medical school, so our job and our business is creating knowledge and educating people. We have many faculty and graduate students who are working on research projects which directly or indirectly address some of the SDGs, and I invite you this week to have a look around at some of the examples to see what we're doing. As educators, we're training, future generations of physicians. We're doing that in the classroom, and we're embedding social determinants of health and SDGs in what we teach. And again, we don't always use that language, but the ideas, the concepts, and the actions are all in there. But we don't just do it in the classroom. We also, for example, send first-year medical students out to rural communities to learn about health on the ground, to see what the profile of health and ill health is within any particular community, and to speak not just to the health professionals who are directly handling that, but also to local leaders to find out what do they think, what are their solutions. So they're learning about SDGs and about making a difference actually on the ground in real life. Now in a university, we are a group of people in the Division of Population Health and Applied Health Sciences who naturally focus on social justice, social determinants of health, and implicitly on the SDGs. And the way of thinking about this is something that's kind of wired into us. But you don't have to just be in this kind of academic unit to be doing work that actually addresses this bigger agenda. So I would say that this way of thinking cuts across pretty much everything that goes on in a medical school, everything that goes on in a graduate school, and right across the university. So the SDGs are not really something abstract or weird or exotic. They're actually just a lens on the world about trying to make a difference.